Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom, I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman. So for this press briefing, a quick update from me. Please then put your questions in the chat of this Zoom, all of which we'll answer this Thursday, the 22nd of August, day 321 of the October 7th war. The war aims remain consistent. The return of all of our hostages, 109 of them, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists and Hindus from 23 countries, aged from just 1 year old, the red-headed Ariel Bibas, to 86 years old. Secondly, the dismantling of Hamas's governmental and military capabilities and removing the terrorist threat to Israel. Allow me to start today with an operational update and some facts and figures, the latest ones that we have. The IDF has confirmed it has defeated the Hamas Rafah division. The Hamas Rafah division was defeated by the brave soldiers of the IDF's 162nd Division. The IDF destroyed over 150 tunnels in the Rafah area. The government has instructed the IDF to concentrate efforts in the coming period on completing the destruction of the remaining tunnels. In the Tal al-Sultan area in Rafah, 50 terrorists were eliminated in the last day, and the IDF has shown pictures of arms, deadly arms, hidden in UNRWA bags. You can see that on the IDF Telegram channel. The defense minister who visited there yesterday made clear that of the 150 tunnels destroyed, around 100 tunnels are in fact trenches dug using engineering tools above the ground and then covered with 1 meter or 2 of dirt. In terms of the wider terror tunnel network in Gaza, Hamas has built one of the world's most expansive military tunnel networks, more than 300 miles long, longer than the New York City subway system. Now, the tunnels range from a few feet below the surface to more than 200 feet underground. In terms of Hamas terrorist fighters, there are more than 30 to 40,000 terrorist fighters were divided into 24 battalions. We have shattered the overwhelming majority of them. Now, these Hamas terrorists have been equipped with anti-tank guns, rifles, heavy machine guns, grenades, mortars, improvised explosive devices, and other weapons. Now, the IDF has killed more than 17,000 of the estimated 30 to 40,000 of the Hamas terrorist army, which is why the Philadelphia corridor, the border between Egypt and Israel, the Hamas lifeline of terrorist smuggling, is so crucial. So, reports that the Prime Minister has agreed that Israel will withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor are incorrect. Israel insists on the achievement of all of our war objectives as defined by the Security Cabinet, including that Gaza never again constitutes a security threat to Israel. Now, this requires securing the southern border. The Prime Minister's made that crystal clear just yesterday. Elsewhere in Gaza, using precise IDF intelligence last night, saw an exact strike on a weapons storage facility in Gaza City. Now, Hamas ruthlessly located this command and control center inside the compound that was formerly the Saladin school. Now, when a school has become a Hamas military center with weapons storage and rocket storage and other weapons to attack Israel, it is no longer a school. There are no lessons taking place in this former school. Hamas have made it a legitimate military target as defined by international law. Now an update from COGAT and their work coordinating aid into Gaza. Yesterday, 206 trucks carrying humanitarian goods were transferred to Gaza, 162 via the Kerem Shalom and 44 via the Erez crossing. Aid arrived from Egypt, Jordan and Israel's port of Ashdod. In terms of collections, 108 trucks were collected from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom crossing. 94 by the private sector, and only 14 by other UN aid agencies. Once again, the private sector putting the UN to shame in its inefficiency. As usual, unfortunately, the contents of 480 trucks still are awaiting collection from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom. Since the beginning of this war, more than 46,000 trucks have delivered more than 910,000 tons of humanitarian aid into Gaza. That's 910,000 tons of humanitarian aid which have gone into Gaza, which is 80% more food compared to prior to October the 7th. So that's the end of our briefing here today. I will now take your questions, which you should put in the chat together with your news outlet. Thank you. First question here I can see is from Jim Williams at Zenga International News in Washington, D.C. Last night here in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention, the Goldbag Polin family spoke to the 20,000 people in the arena and the over 35 million people watching on TV about the hostages being held in Gaza. When they made their plea to get their son back, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Does the Prime Minister think that showing the people of the world the inhumanity of Hamas helps to advance the hostage ceasefire talks? Thank you very much for that question, Jim. I think none of us, certainly here in Israel, can have been anything but moved at the incredible courage of all of our hostage families, but particularly of the Goldberg Polin family. It's a tragic story, and the dignity with which this mum and dad, Rachel and John, have gone around the world, spoken to thousands and thousands of people, spoken on many, many TV channels and on the internet, the dignity with which they have raised the plight of their son, trying to get their son home, together with our other 109 hostages, has been nothing short of inspiring. And all of us here are pleased that the DNC managed to see them and meet them and hear from them for themselves. It is a daily, every minute that these poor 109 people are held in custody is a crime against humanity and a symbol of the inhumanity of the Hamas leadership. Our people must be brought home right now without any further delay. It is an outrage and just a symbol of the inhumanity of this terrorist organization that they continue to hold our people 321 days on now. Next question is from Hannah Julian from the Jewish Press. Last night, a readout from the White House said that the conversation between the Prime Minister and President Biden stressed the urgency of bringing a ceasefire and hostage release deal to closure and discuss the upcoming talks in Cairo to remove any remaining obstacles. What's the government's response to the implication that it's Israel's job to remove any remaining obstacles to a Hamas deal? Thank you very much for that question, Hannah. Look, on this hostage release deal, the Prime Minister he couldn't have been clearer that Israel is committed to and is doing everything in our power to bring back all of our 109 hostages who are still cruelly being held in Hamas captivity for 10 months now. The living and the deceased alike, the living to be returned to their family, and the deceased to give them the decency which they were denied in life, and give them a proper burial, a dignified burial. Among them, we know, are women, children, and the elderly. So we do appreciate the efforts of the United States and the mediators to dissuade Hamas from its refusal, Hamas's refusal, again I say, Hamas's refusal, as it has been throughout the last 10 months. It has been Hamas that have walked away from a deal every single time, except for that moment in November when we managed to pull 100 of our people out. Now, Hamas refused to agree to a deal for the release of our hostages. Now, these negotiations continue in order to form a framework agreement based upon the principles presented by the US in May in a manner that will enable the return of all of our hostages while achieving the other goals of this war. Next question is from Agence France Presse, Louis Baudouin Larman from AFP. Is Israel sending a negotiating delegation to work on a ceasefire deal? If so, where and when? Thank you for that question, Louis. In the previous question, I made clear the government's policy regarding this hostage deal. We want it to succeed. We are willing to do everything in our power to bring back all of our 109 hostages who are still cruelly being held in Hamas captivity for the last 10 months. Next question from Jody Cohen at World is One News in India. What pressure is being put on Hamas by mediators to encourage them to agree to the US-backed bridging proposal? Thank you for that question, Jody. So that sounds like a question for the US, for Qatar and Egypt. We, on our part, are putting on military pressure to Hamas. We know that that's what works. It's only when we hold their feet to the fire that they become serious about this potential hostage release deal, and we are continuing to do that. But let me say quite clearly that we are prepared, Israel is prepared, and the Prime Minister's made this crystal clear, for any threat, both defensively and offensively. We are determined to defend ourselves and will exact a very high price from any enemy, from wherever they come from, backed by Iran, who dares to attack us from any arena whatsoever. Okay, next question here I can see is from... Okay, I think that's the last question, actually. Are there any more questions? No? Any more questions? No, that's the last question. Just go up to the top again. No, okay, that was the last question. So, thank you for joining us. The next briefing will take place on Monday. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. Please do stay safe, and thank you. Bye-bye.